Hi everyone, this is gonna be my breakdown video for In These Shadows. As you see, I opened up the project here. I'm just gonna go through, well, the different parts and try to give you an idea of how I make my music. So let's get started. Okay, before I get into the drums, I'm gonna play you this intro so you can hear it.
Stuck inside my mind for days, memories haunt me in this endless maze. The games we play are deadly, aren't they? Blow this pain to smithereens.
Alright, that's all you're getting for now. So let's start off with the kick over here. So it's a sample I got from this Neurofunk grid pack. It's a Forerunner kick. Big ups Forerunner for the kick. Yeah, basically I've layered the same kick twice because there's quite a bit of a delay between this transient over here and the main body of the kick, the base of the kick. So I have one instance which is cut so that it just has the transient, and then one instance is actually the base of it. So that's the base, that's the transient, and then I layered them one on top of the other so that they hit in the same time. And you get that transient and the bass hitting together, and it just makes it sound more compact. Well, I haven't done much to these kicks. I've cut off some of the higher frequencies on the bass part and on the top end as well, because I want it to be this. I want it to be pretty bassy and just this low thump that you can hear. I mean, you can.
Stuck inside my mind for days, memories.
Like, it's under everything. It's pretty discreet, but then again, it smacks you pretty hard on the sub. So then moving on, I got my sidechain channel here. Yeah, I just quickly want to mention that a lot of these things that I do are pretty intuitive. I haven't taken any production lessons, or I just learned from tutorials and from experimenting myself. So if I'm doing something that's shockingly wrong, please let me know. I just I just go with the flow and do whatever sounds good to me. So in this, the way I sidechain my tracks is I I drop a drum rack and then just put some sound, uh, which is just gonna be, it's just gonna act as a signal. It's not even playing. As you see, the channel's actually turned off. It's gray. And if I turn it on and let you listen to it, it's really just a little transient. The decay's stopped at 35.9 milliseconds, so it's just short. It's really the start of any sound, and I compress all these other channels to that. And why I do that? Well, basically, I layer this signal every time the kick and the snare plays, and that way, all the basses, well, they just get compressed really hard on that signal, and it gives space for the drums and the snare, and that's how the drums, well, sound clean in the end, and they come through the mix. It's pretty standard stuff. I don't know if a lot of people do it like this, but yeah, that's how I've taught myself to do it. So as for the snare, well, and I got two different snares in the track. In the intro, it's just a little acoustic sounding snare. I like that feel. I didn't want to have something big and bulky at the start. So it's, let's see what it, yeah, it's just one sample. It's, I think it's something I built up from an acoustic drum kit layered with some of these snares from one of these Neurofunk grid packs. So again, Neurofunk grid, thanks. I got a second snare, but that comes in later for the drop. I don't know why I have these in two different channels, but all right, we'll talk about that a little later. So for the hats, Uh, I'm not really a fan of working with hats, but alright, I dropped in. Oh wait, solo. I dropped in these, and I kind of play around with them, I guess. Yeah, sorry, the sidechain thing was on. For the patterns, well, I'm not much of a drummer really, and that's something I'll have to improve on, but it's just something, I guess I've just done it and copied it a bunch of times. But alright, it's discreet. The hats are discreet, you don't really notice them. So I got a percussion channel, which doesn't do anything, so boom, get rid of it. I have another set of hats. So, well, I guess they're rides, and this is taken from Battery 4, which is from Native Instruments. Really cool samples in here. I don't use it so much, but they have some quality stuff, so it's all pretty useful. Yeah, what I've done with it, well, a bit of overdrive on the highs. I've filtered out the low so that it doesn't overlap with the rest of the drums. I've compressed it a little bit, made it mono. This is probably something that most producers don't do. They like to have their hats wide and their rides wide, sounding stereo. But I just feel it kind of overlaps with my basses, which I like to have stereo. So then I keep my drums pretty mono in terms of hats, rides, everything. My kick, my snare, everything's just down the middle, and then the bass is on the side, and the vocals, kind of in between that. And then I feel that's the best way I get space for everything. But if there's a reason why I shouldn't do that, let me know. Here I got a little reverse channel, nothing too spectacular. So basically, what I did was I probably froze the hats or the rides, and then reversed them so that it gives this, and it just kind of sucks you into the kick here. If you know if that makes any sense. Kind of slides it in, and here we go. But alright, I like to use reverses a lot because it helps connect the different parts of the music and makes everything flow a little better. So I have two percussion channels down here, and again, I don't even know why I have them. Alright, I'll get rid of that. Alright, that's about it for the drums. Well, actually, here, I might as well talk about the snare. So in the drop, I felt that the snare I had in my intro was just not, well, it just wasn't really powerful enough. So here I have a different snare going, which is something I've made a while ago, and then I just resampled it and cut out, what did I do? Yeah, I cut out, no, that's confusing. Yeah, I cut out all the bottom end of the kick, compressed it, added reverb, and a little bit of saturator, barely any saturator, but just a little bit. And I layered that with another snare, which hits around 200 hertz, which is more of a typical dubstep snare. So when you hear them together, yeah, that's got the right frequencies to be heard over the basses and over the drop. Because I mean, that little acoustic snare is never gonna sound over this stuff here. So that's why I needed to change that up. But alright, that's it for the drums, I think. I mean, on the end, I might have done a little bit of, I might have added a bit of compression and EQing just to make them sound tight together. And, yeah, I got two compressors, but okay. that's just generally how I like to mix my drums. So then to move on, I got my ambience group here. This is gonna be all the instruments or synths that aren't really main leads or basses, that I kind of have going on in the background, like this little arpeggio here. I have it panned a bit to the side because so that it doesn't get in the way too much of the vocals and of the drums. I've cut out the bottom frequencies, added some reverb, compressed it. Well, this is just putting the volume down. The limiter is putting the volume down, and I have a filter which I use later on. Oh no, I don't even use it. So never mind that. Okay. And then I have a more powerful version of that same arpeggio, which just probably has, it just has more reverb. It's just compressed a bit more, and it's just a little more powerful. It's done in massive. You can use just about anything for this. It's just a square saw wave, and it's there's not much done. I haven't done anything to this, I don't think. Yeah, I've made it a little stereo over here. So added a second voice. I don't think there's there's no modulation. Yeah, I haven't really messed much with it. I added some chorus and dimension expander from Massive. I really like to use those effects. It just gives it a bit of it makes the sounds much bigger. So in both cases it's Massive here. I use Massive a lot. Just before that I got something in Reactor here. Yeah, you see, this is what I mean by ambience. It's just things that you don't really notice, but they do play an effect. Like if I play this all together. You don't really, you hear it kind of, but it's pretty discreet, but it gives depth to the sound, to the song, because you feel like there's more layers. There's more than what you can just hear, straight up in front of you. So that's from Native Instruments Scanner XT. Cool plugin. I don't use it so much, but then again, it's got some really cool sounds, and I found this, and this really, well, I felt it worked with everything else I had going on, so I used that. In the bridge section, there's this little, you haven't heard this because you don't know the full track, but I guess that's part of it all. I'm gonna tease you a little bit here. So that's this little piano here, again from Contact. It's from Evolved Mutations 2, Frozen Piano. It's just a standard plugin. I haven't a standard preset. Sorry, I haven't really messed around with it too much. I put a vinyl distortion on it, ran it through a guitar amp. That's a typical thing I like to do. I like to put things through Guitar Rig and just run them through amps, and it gives you cool effects and stuff. Sometimes I layer this is annoying, this crackle. Yeah. Sometimes I layer the version that the channel that goes through the amp with the one that's clean without the amp, and it gives just a cool feel to the sound. Otherwise, well, I've compressed it, a little bit of limiting, but essentially that's just for the volume, so not too much processing on that one. And I think that's it for the ambience. The guitars I recorded myself. Yeah, nothing too fancy. Panned them both very much, like, 18 and 19 are the two guitars, and then one's panned all the way left, one's panned all the way right, and they're two different recordings, so you can really hear them very wide, and the reason I like to do that is so that it's not in the way of everything that's down the center. I think it's really important to get space in your stereo field. I like to have my drums in the middle, bass on the side, and this is like really panned so that it's even further on the side than the bass, and it just doesn't really interfere with the vocals, with anything else that I have, and it just makes it clean. It makes it sound clean, and that's always important, because when things start overlapping and you have frequencies going over each other, I mean, essentially you can EQ things and make it sound pretty good, but it's also important to use your stereo field. I mean, we have that advantage now to be able to do that, so it's really important. I have, yeah, there's, oh yeah, so there's the 2 channels for the guitar, but then on top of that I have like a little melody which is also recorded. So nothing much, but just to vary it up a bit. What is this over here? Yeah, some chords as well. But this is the kind of stuff that you don't hear much here. Look, if I play from over here, you're not really gonna notice these chords. You can hear them a little bit, but I mean, if you couldn't hear them at all, there would be no point, obviously. But yeah, they're discreet. They're discreet, but they give depth to the sound. They give depth to the song. Okay, so moving on, I got my effects here. Yeah, just basic stuff. I think it's just white noise, and I think so. Ah, no, these are resampled synths. Oh yeah.
I'm fading out. I'm falling down under these skies are down. Help me get.
So yeah, just, you know, something cool. I really like the sound. It's something well, it's some synths I made, and then instead of keeping the channels with the synths, you know, which uses a lot of CPU just for those sounds, I just recorded it, got rid of the synths, and I have them over here. So that's cool. Here I have some white noise, I think, to lead up. Yeah. Yeah. And when you hear it bounce like that, like you hear it cut really briefly, that's just the side chain. That's what I was talking about here with the drums, the side chain to this transient here. It's really short, but you don't hear it because drums are hitting in that moment. If I played with the drums, you won't even hear that it ducks.
Skies are down. Help me get back up, 'cause in these shadows.
Well, I mean, it's pretty quiet in general, but you don't hear it, you know, bouncing around. You just hear the drums in that place, and naturally it feels like the thing is just sliding like shh constantly the whole time. I got another white noise here. I think this is Vengeance. Yeah, that's Vengeance. Let's see. I got only one Vengeance pack. Electroshock 2. I think it all sounds pretty clean. I usually use the effects from here. But okay, I'm not a specialist when it comes to that. Basic processing, reverb, cutting the lows here so that they don't interfere with whatever other frequencies I have. For example, this bass, I don't want to have noise going over that. The sub always has to be clean. Okay, the effects, well, it's pretty straightforward stuff, so let's move on. I got my Reese here. This is in the intro. Again, massive. I split it into 2 different channels. I actually learned how to make this sound from a tutorial. Now I forget from who it is, but alright, I learned it ages ago. And it's a massive. It's okay, so that's just a sub channel, but here, let's go into here. This is the Reese. So this has been cut at 100 hertz. And under 100 hertz, well, it's usually sub frequencies. And although this does have sub frequencies, if I cut out the EQ, you're gonna hear those. You're gonna hear that it goes under 100 hertz. But since it's detuned and it's messing around, it's two oscillators messing with each other. It just the sub moves around too much and it's not clean enough. So what I've done is I've cut it at 100 hertz, and I've layered an actual just sine wave sub, just a clean sub under there to play the notes, and together it just sounds much more compact. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you don't notice so much on your home system or headphones, but then when you're in a club, this does make a difference, because in this case the sine wave sub is just it's gonna be much more powerful. Okay, so that's my Reese and the intro. You can hear it under everything.
Dark inside my mind for days, memories.
Again, there's sidechain compression on it, but you don't hear it because the drums hit every time the sound ducks. But okay, enough about sidechain compression. So then I got my main basses. So this is when it starts to get a little more complex, but not so much either. I mean, it's still pretty basic stuff. I'm not so technical with my basses. I don't do any crazy stuff. They're usually pretty straightforward. So when the breakdown comes, there's this bass. So at this point, you hear a lot of reverb on it, and I want it, this is the automation for the reverb. So I like to have that in the build-up, because you don't want your bass to be at its fullest in the build-up. That's how I feel, at least, because then when it actually drops, it's anticlimax. Like, you feel like you've already heard it. But here, since it goes up, and it becomes extremely just, damped in reverb and whatnot. So when it actually hits here at the drop, it's much more clean and direct, and you can just feel it much more than it was here during the build-up. The bass itself, well, I got two basses that are similar, but okay, let's start with this first one. So this is split into its corresponding frequencies, the highs, mids, lows. That's how I like to process my basses, because you can really tweak every aspect of it. So this is a massive. Again, I use massive. It's not science here. I mean, it's not super complicated. This is the highs. I got a standards. Well, it's a saw wave. This is another one called Frozen, and it's, I mean, I don't really know what this does. I just know how it sounds. And all right, I think that's it. Chorus here, dimension expander. Of course, I dragged this up so that it's going at its fullest. I have 4 voices, and I've panned it out. Like I say, I like to have my basses out wide so that my drums are clean down the center. I've also, I think, no, there's no modulation going on. Yeah, there's not much. I mean, it's the initial sound is pretty basic. I think if I kill this, let's see what. That's how it actually sounds. That's how the massive preset actually sounds, which is pretty horrendous. But when you put all this stuff on it, it's just the highs, and it just adds that fizz on top of the bass to make it to give it that power. I mean, EDM, is a lot of it is these highs have to be filled in. All the frequency range has to be there, and it's important that the highs are there, or everything sounds pretty weak if it's damped. If it's if it didn't have that, the bass just wouldn't sound the same. I mean, I might as well just show that. So that's the bass. If I take out the highs, it's just this. I mean, come on, that's pretty weak. With the highs, like, it's just more powerful. It's got that drive to it. Okay, so then I got the mids. Well, that's probably not a good way to call it, because I'm actually I'm still letting the highs out on this. So that's this, sounding a little better. So this is, well, these waves, and there's a little bit of, yeah, there's some modulation here. Same chorus, dimension expander. I don't use the filters too much. Voices, 4 voices, out wide, the typical way I process my basses. And then, okay, so those are layered. They're obviously playing the same notes. And then I got my sub under all that, which I've cut out the high frequencies. And all these things are cut out so that they don't really overlap with each other too much. They work together, but they don't cancel each other out. One of the plugins I've used here is Driver. It's just a distortion plugin. Wait, if I take this out, this is how the mids sound. So it sounds pretty weak. And then you add all this stuff. And it's got much more power to it. Alright. That makes sense, I hope. On the group chain, I've added some reverb, but this goes out as soon as the drop starts. As you see, this is the dry-wet automation. It goes up here, boom. Nothing anymore at the drop. And then for the second build-up, same thing. Goes up and then down. This doesn't really matter because there's no bass playing. Yeah, I've boosted the highs a bit. I don't like to have too much on the group chain, but here it seems I've kind of disregarded that and just gone with it. I've compressed it, put sidechain compression as well. And then I have all my filters here. And I use them in the build-up as well. Like I say, I don't like to have the full power of the sound before it drops. And that's a way to take that power away, is if you start cutting the lows or start cutting the highs, and then when the drop hits, you put that back so that the bass has all its frequencies. Then that really emphasizes the drop. And I think that's really important because anticlimactic drops are just terrible. So the second bass here, same idea, except I've changed the way it moves, so it kind of waves. It's let's see, what have I done actually? Okay. I haven't actually used an LFO, which would be like the more classic way to do it. I've just actually repeated the note and increased the attack so that it takes longer to kick in. So it has that had that sliding effect, if you can call it that. As for the sound itself, though, it's the same as the actual hit here, as bass 1. As for the notes, I know I haven't really talked about the harmony and melody, but it's basic stuff. It's an A minor. It switches between A minor, D minor, the subdominant. And there's nothing too technical musically here. It's more about the sounds. Okay, that's the two main basses. I got the vocals, so I recorded these fairly recently, and that's Carmen.
Stuck inside my mind for days.
Again, you can hear it kind of clipping out, and that's the sidechain compression again kicking in, but you don't notice that when the drums are playing.
Stuck inside my mind for days. Memories haunt me in this endless maze.
Alright, so the way I've processed these vocals, I've put them into Melodyne. Melodyne works with just pitch and, well, not only, you can do so many things. So I correct the pitch, and then I go in here and I have these effect chains on it. Without all of this stuff, the vocals sound really dry. I mean, let's just give you an example here. This is the vocals just clean.
Stuck inside my mind for days.
I mean, you can hear the room, you can hear there's nothing much. I mean, no, Carmen, I'm not criticizing your vocals. I'm criticizing the microphone and the place we recorded it. Just want to make that clear.
Stuck inside my mind for days.
So that reverb really makes it big, and it gives it that EDM feel that people people look for.
Stuck inside my mind for days. Memories.
Much wider sound. So that's the main channel, and then later on I got some harmonies coming in here.
I'm fading out.
Beautiful stuff.
I'm fading out.
So what I've done to process these, I've filtered them a little higher up so the lower frequencies are out, added a little more reverb, and I've panned them. I've doubled it and I've panned them to the side so that the main vocal track is down the middle, and then the two harmony tracks are out wide, and it works very well together.
I'm fading out. I'm falling down under these skies of doubt.
So that's that. I mean, in terms of the processing, I won't get into this too much. I mean, yeah, I've added a little bit of distortion, running it through an amp. I tend to do that a lot. Compressed it because the voice moves quite a lot. Reverb, ping pong delay, and I have this from Isotope, so I've made it a little wider because the vocals are pretty dead center. They're pretty mono. I wanted to widen it a bit, give it more room. Alright, so that's basically it for the vocals. I mean, I have the vocal effects track here, which is just reverse reverb. So that just... Oh, I should probably play that with
Help me get back up, 'cause in this shit.
Well, you can't really hear that.
Stuck inside.
There you can hear it. I mean, it basically just leads the vocal in. And like I say, with the reverses, that's something I do a lot, and I really like it because it links up all the different parts of the track and makes everything flow smoothly. And finally, okay, well, this is just the original recordings. Well, as a basic overview here, now that we've gone through all the channels, well, I structure everything. It's not very systematic. I mean, I have these few bars here of introduction, then I have this, I have a breakdown. I mean, let's just say it's not very conventional in terms of how long all of these sections are. For example, here I shift everything by a bar because this piano ends late. So DJs are gonna hate me for that, but hey, I mean, I just do things the way I hear them, the way I think they sound best. Not because that's the way everyone else does it or the way that it's conventional to do. The second verse, there's actually no vocals. It's just, I don't know. I like to have the middle, to leave the middle of a track instrumental. For Raindrops, they asked me to do a second verse, so we did it later on. But initially, it was only the first verse. The bridge here is that little piano. Second drop is almost the same as the first one, except for a few variations. As you can hear. Oh, sorry. So I change up the notes here, and then later I play around with this bass, and I have, yeah, some. So that's, well, nothing complex, but just to vary it all a bit. I mean, that's also important. I'm not great with adding variation. These markers here are just, well, I like to have that just to know where I am, because after a while you work on a track and you're like, oh, is this the first drop, second drop, build up, you get lost in it. So that's just to make everything clear, and plus I can just clear everything from where it is. So yeah, I think that's basically it. I hope well, I hope you got an idea of the way I make my music. Again, if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, please let me know, because for most of this I actually don't know what I'm doing. Well, okay, I wouldn't say it that way, but I'm doing things just the way I hear them, and I know there's a lot of theory to it. For example, I've actually mastered this track myself, and I can hear that there's a difference between the final master and some of the big UKF releases and all that, and that's just something I'm gonna learn. And I mean, now I'm gonna go study music, so I'll be able to get into that and understand more about it. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too long. Hope yeah, I didn't bore you, and that it all made sense. And I might have more of these breakdown videos or tutorials in the future. So yeah, take care, guys.